A question that I get a lot is how do I handle it when my report of investigation is missing something? Well, today I'm going to be talking about that in the context of witness statements, but this same general approach should work for documentation or data as well. I'm not an attorney, and I'm familiar with the federal sector process. Those of you in the private sector can probably use some of what I'm going to talk about today. Just keep in mind there are differences between the two, and do your own research. In the federal sector, 29 CFR 1614.108 requires all federal employees to produce whatever documentary and testimonial evidence your investigator deems necessary, unless agency officials show good cause. Again, that includes not just documentary evidence, but testimony as well. If a witness is a federal employee and the agency fails to make them available, it can result in adverse inferences against the agency. So we need to document that stuff, and there are a couple ways to do it. But before we talk about how to do it, let's first talk about what we need to document. Now, if what's missing is a witness, then we need to call out that witness by name. And we need to identify which of the facts of our case that witness's testimony could tend to prove or disprove, which is the criteria that EEOC investigators should be using to determine what's relevant. Could tend to prove or disprove covers pretty much any witness that can verify our allegations or the harm we suffered. One of my witnesses was the guy in the next office, Joe. Joe overheard my boss laughing at me about my medical condition, and he overheard me asking her to stop. Joe's testimony would have tended to prove my allegations that my boss had illegally harassed me on the basis of disability. But when I asked Joe to get involved, he said he didn't want to. I could have just given my investigator his name anyway, and today that's probably what I would do. But Joe was a nice guy, and I had another witness who was actually in the room and saw that same stuff, so I let Joe off the hook. There were some witnesses that I couldn't afford to let off the hook, who also didn't want to talk. I gave their names to my investigator. She asked to interview them, and NASA arranged it. And during those interviews, she got them all to open up and talk. That's the way it happens most of the time. We name witnesses and explain to our investigator how they're relevant to our case. Then our investigator asks the agency to make those witnesses available, and the agency does. Sometimes there are good reasons that the agency can't make a witness available. But sometimes the agency might not want a particular witness to talk, and they'll come with excuses. Investigators tend to believe those excuses. But if a particular witness is really important to our case, we need to push back and document what's happening. The easy way is to email our investigator about it. And I recommend CCing the diversity manager because the CFR says that the agency has to be put on notice that an incomplete investigation could work against them. I kept it simple. Here's how mine went for one of my witnesses. I haven't seen a statement from Susan yet. She was the only person who saw my boss threaten me, so what she has to say could tend to prove my allegations of retaliation. Does the agency have good cause for her to be excluded from the investigation? And if so, how will that be reflected in the report of investigation? Most investigators will see an email like that and they'll be taken aback for a minute. But the good ones will quickly work through it and probably go talk to Susan. Susan may or may not say what I need her to, but she'll have to say something. If our investigator doesn't talk to our witnesses, then step 2 in documenting the investigative gap is to include it in our rebuttal to the report of investigation. What we say here is about the same as the email we sent, only instead of asking if the agency had good reasons, we can simply state, the agency's failed to show good cause for excluding this witness, and since their testimony could tend to prove my allegations of whatever your claim is, therefore, all inferences should be drawn in my favor. If you use that at summary judgment, it should get you a hearing. And we can use it again during the hearing, where it hopefully will get us even more. And we'll have to be able to explain all the points of our case that the missing witness could have confirmed. A good AJ will probably ask the agency to make that witness or information available right away. But if they're pressed for time, they may decide to skip it and draw all inferences on those points in our favor. We can also question the agency's witnesses about why they failed to show good cause for excluding that witness. And we can ask them why they ignored the concerns we expressed over it repeatedly during our investigation. Basically, we want to seize any opportunity to point out to our AJ that the record is incomplete and therefore biased. So hopefully they'll do something about it. So those are my thoughts. If you guys are going through something similar, or if you have in the past, let me know what you're running into and what you're doing about it. Thankfully, the statutes offer federal employees some protections against incomplete and biased investigations. But they only work if we know those protections exist and how to use them. That's it for today. I'll see you guys in the next one. Till then, take care and hang in. Bye.